G'day folks, hope we're all doing well. I hope you're all having a good evening. We're here for the first ever RLO Power Rankings, and we're joined by Bass and CJ. Guys, how you doing tonight?
You're doing well, lads. Doing well. Good to be here.
Yeah, stoked, Yummy. And obviously, any time I'm with you, it just fills my heart with joy. So really excited for the next hour.
God, you sound so excited. I just like the emotion in the voice when you say something as truthful as that.
100%, and that's all I give you is just pure honesty and emotion.
Awesome. Listen, it's going to be a good night. We're going to talk about power rankings. We'll also chat about what happened in this last weekend. We might even go back to the previous weekend because, well, Dover refused to run this production this previous week. We have to start after week number 2. Bass as well, I think you've had a lot of hand in the RLO Power Rankings, so how do you feel about the transition?
Yeah, it's good. Finally being able to step out and talk for a change instead of just writing it down on the website for everyone to read. So yeah, it'd be good to be able to change it up, and hopefully people tune in and get to watch it back as well. So it's a great opportunity for everybody to do that as well.
So you get to put people to sleep with your words or with your voice instead of your words. That's a real big step up right here. Guys, we just had event number 2. CJ, you're obviously part of it. Basincc, watching on the sidelines. Me, watching even further back. CJ, how was the second event? What's the feeling around there as a player?
Well, obviously, the first event came as a bit of surprise to, I guess, as a player, as one of the previous top 2, us and Ground Zero. Probably a bit of surprise that we had, obviously, Direwolves and Fikidden up top. So the second event was sort of solidified that, I guess. So we've sort of got a little bit of a top 4 on our hands, maybe even a top 3, you could argue. So I guess from a viewership perspective, it's probably the most exciting, definitely more exciting than last split in terms of who's going to make the major, and it's shaping up for a really big third regional.
And what about you, Bass? How you feeling, or how were you feeling about the weekend?
It was a little bit more relaxed. Nerves were a little bit more relaxed than the first regional. I think the first regional caught everyone a little bit by surprise, especially with Direwolves for Fikidden grand final.
So you think it was nerves?
Yeah, nerves, a little bit of nerves, but it's good to be relaxed and good to see Renegades getting back on top. I think that's good for the region as well. So.
Oh, look at the bias coming out. I thought you were a Direwolves fan. Come on.
It's because I'm on the call, getting off the call. It's all about the Direwolves. He's tweeting about the Direwolves every time they win, so we know where his heart lies. It's okay, Bass. I know we love the Direwolves. It was good to see them win as well. It was good.
You should hear him rip into Renegades whenever CJ's not here. It's crazy. Exactly. He hates Kami. Oh my god. Kami, third bottom in stats in the playoffs. That's all he ever repeats. Well, I guess the main takeaways, we're going to have a look at what the stories you said, CJ, the top 3 is formed here. I think that's pretty fair. There's only Ground Zero, basically 0 chance of making it. You guys in the lead, Renegades, and then it is Fikidden and Direwolves. However, it's very easy for any of those 3 to qualify. So who do you think is going to make the major?
Bass, go.
Oh man, damn. Look, I really liked Fikidden. They did disband or disappear from playing with each other for a while. They tried different rosters, didn't work, and they came back and they've been, grand finalists now for 2 in a row. So I think Direwolves have got to really play really well. I'm going to pick Fikidden. I think Fikidden have got a good shot. If they just finish in front of Direwolves, that's all they need to do. And they're going to be off to the major in LA.
Or equal to.
Yeah, that too as well, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go the other way. I think, obviously, I'll want to put my own team in. I think that we were really disappointed with the first regional. We got the wheels sort of back on the train in Regional 3, but I think we still have more to prove here. I wouldn't be satisfied if we just snuck away in. You want to make the major and know that you sort of deserve to go. And right now, we don't really deserve it. And the second team, I'm going to go Direwolves. I think I'm a bit worried about Fikidden. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the sidelines right now with looking at signing to a new org and stuff like that. I'm a little bit worried that they've made their dash a bit early here, considering obviously it is a very tight race. towards the major. I can see sort of Direwolves have been sort of just building. Also, obviously not as consistent as Forgiven when you look at it, but they do have the regional win under their belt. I like the idea that if you win a regional, like to go to the majors top 2, you know, you win a regional. Like I like that because then you sort of, you know, you're not just the second team. Like you sort of at some stage can be the best team in the region. So I kind of like that idea. So if Kidden do win this weekend, they deserve it. But I think Direwolves will keep their head a bit more, just because they've had a little bit less going on with the org stuff. So I that's just my opinion. But yeah, I worry a little bit about Kidden, or maybe that's just my own mental to make sure we can go all right this weekend. I'll just say that.
I think Ground Zero could be causing spoilers as well. They're the ones that could just send somebody out in the upper bracket or the lower bracket, and really decide who ends up going. There's also been some rumors around of roster changes. Anybody got any thoughts here? Roster changes after the second event?
I'm not really a fan of it, to be honest. I don't know why people are changing. You know, you get to an end of a split, you keep all your points, you've worked. We've hit the halfway mark of the season now. Like, if you're gonna, you know, pull the plug halfway, then what was the point of playing the first 4? So, like, just stick with it. That's all I have to say. Just stick with it and change at the end of the trade window.
Yeah, look, I think I sort of agree. If I'm in a position, I guess, where I'm just outside the running, like it's looking unlikely. I think you still have to back yourself in that, like, wait one more event. You're going to do more harm than good by changing right now. So it's very interesting to see. I think that I feel like we've proven that a bit of longevity with the rosters always leads to better results. It's not just trying to find...
Except for Riot.
They've been consistent in the groups. I think they've just had some rough playoff days, obviously with the best of 7 stats that everyone wants to talk about with them. But I don't know about the changes. Obviously, they're already looking at RLCS 2023, 2022, 2023.
Well, they've given up on Worlds.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Or the next major, I guess, just to try and make that next major. But interesting decisions. But at the same time, I guess if those teams are really frustrated and can't play with each other anymore, then I guess you make the change. But I still think it's a lot more than gameplay in Rocket League, and I think still a lot of these teams focus on purely the performance aspect rather than like a lot of other things that could be hindering that. So, I mean, it'll make it an exciting third regional, because I think you'll probably bring out this up, Yummy, but the seeding might be absolutely wacko.
You can have 4 of the previous top 8s kind of who have mixed around all in the same group. That is possible.
That could get scary.
Be scary for close qual. Teams will miss out.
I will say that there's kind of one change that I've heard of. You know, again, it's just a rumor that I've heard that looks like they're picking up a player because the player became available, like an upgrade, quote unquote, became available, at least in their eyes. So that's kind of reasonable if you're not able to make the major. But we'll see. We'll see how that all does pan out. Let's actually get started in terms of our power rankings. I'm assuming we're going 10 to 1. We actually haven't been briefed on that, but surely we're going 10 to 1, right, Dover? Yeah, we're going 10 to 1. So let's... I also don't have the list here, so let's bring up number 10, and we'll have a chat about each of these teams. But at the moment, before we... as we go into that, Bass, how are you feeling about like our top 8? Is there like a distinction? Is there a gap right now in OC? Is there a separation point?
I definitely think we got a top 4. I think you got top 4, and then you've got probably 5 to about 9, and then everybody else is just, you know, you could pick at random who would be that 10th, 11th, 12th spot in our power rankings. So for number 10, you know, seeing now that's appeared below for us, it is Big Goose. I think they've been consistent, which is good. But yeah, we'll get into more of it, I think, now as well, which will be good to see.
What are your thoughts on Big Goose, CJ? Big Goose fan?
I feel like at last in RLCSX we had Big Goose in every single one of our sort of Swiss stage or the qualifier the weekend before, sort of the Sunday that we used to play in. Now I don't think we've played Big Goose at all, so can't really talk about it from a player perspective. But they're always sort of just around that mark. I guess for them, it's just trying to push these, your Team Blisses and I guess your Riots now to try and sort of get into that top 8. Obviously, with the roster changes, maybe they are now maybe the other 6 team in OCE on points. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't have too much to comment from an individual perspective. I think Schmoop's just an absolute pest in ranked, so I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Schmoop's awesome. I feel like Schmoop is probably a player who's going to be pushing up in terms of what people are looking for on their roster, but that also depends on his motivation here. But I think I rated Big Goose pretty highly. I'm actually going back to look at mine. I had them as number 10 as well, so not too high. But I've consistently rated them high. I feel like they do consistently get results. And just to go back on the kind of tier list section, CJ, did you feel there's very clear distinctions like Bass had?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really good for the scene, I guess, as well. That sort of before we just had so many teams that would just sort of come in and out, barring the homie change Seaver team that made the absolute miracle run.
You mean the one match absolute miracle run?
The miracle run where you get a 3-0 for a team that wasn't there, and then you win one game against 16-20 Kings to make top 8. Or no, was it top 8? Yeah.
Yeah, top 8. Yeah.
That was phenomenal. Which probably just shows more about the format that we could probably get into in a little bit. But I know everyone sort of talks about the format around the world. Not the biggest fan of, for a lot of reasons, but yeah, I like it. I like the fact that we've got a bit more of a solidified sort of, here's your group, and I think you talked about it yesterday, Yumi, we had sort of the wild card as like the connector, your wild card, and was it 16-20 Kings maybe connected sort of between the top and the bottom, the top 6 and sort of the 10 and below or 8 and below, so I think it's really good for the region, but now we're all splitting up, so what's going on there?
The tier list, the rankings are all kind of kaput at this point, but we'll see how that goes. Big Goose, solid results all around, and consistently getting good placements, but not getting into that top 8 for sure. Let's have a look at our next team though, number 9, and that's going to be a team that has been sort of getting the results. 16-20 Kings went Game 5 in the first event in every single one of their games against Ground Zero, Wildcard, and then against Collateral, who they lost to, and they gave up their spot, but then finally did it this weekend over Bliss.
Yeah, 16-20, they just constantly, they love Game 5s. They're like the new Direwolves. They just love going the distance. But they've also, being able to upset people as well. Recent results, they beat Bliss. Okay. Bliss made a top 6 previous regional and then lost to 16-20. So they keep rising. They added Baked Potato in this split, which is a new addition, and it looks to be working for them. So hopefully
it hasn't been working for them that well. Come on.
Well, they're a little bit better than last time. They were struggling to make regionals last time, so to be able to make it is a good start. But are they still together? We don't know.
Are they still together, CJ? Do you know?
Oh, I haven't heard about the Kings. I think they're still together. They did get, obviously, Sweet Bliss, which made top 4, by the way, not top 6 last regional Bass. So that was, I guess that's a really big feather in their cap. But I don't know how to hang that result because I don't know if Bliss were awake for that game. That was first series of groups, and they got literally just blown out of the water. And then, Kings are losing to Clarity, who's obviously, we spoke about being one of the best top 8 runs we've ever seen. So,
what? No, one of the worst top 8 runs.
Yeah, well, that game right there, the Kings had they got second seed in our Group B. They had the perfect opportunity to get a top 8 against Clarity of all teams. And they
Clarity,
didn't do
who
it.
do not scrim.
Who do not scrim, and they're all, I think, in cans or something, just hanging out. So I think that's sort of worrying from my perspective, that if they're going to be a team with that roster to sort of push into sort of your top 8s, and obviously, they did beat Bliss in the group stage, but you have to be beating a team like Clarity, because, we saw against Fakidden when Clarity played them in the lowers, they just absolutely demolished them. It really wasn't even worth streaming that game. It was ridiculous. So, that's sort of worrying, I guess, in terms of that team, because they versed a non-top 8 team to make top 8. So that's the one where you have to make it. So, I guess we'll have to see how they go. Big old baked potato. Do like that guy though. He's a good dude.
Well, they've set themselves up basically as the chokers, right? I mean, they game fives just can't finish it off, and it's a sign that they're a good team, but they can't finish. They don't have the ice, and that'll be something they have to work on here. But let's head into number 8, and as we kind of spoiled to you guys, we've got, I don't think, a clear number 8 actually. I think we've got a very clear number top 7, but 8 is still in a bit of a limbo. Maybe in more ways than one. We've got Wildcard Gaming number 8, and let's just say that night they got a 9th place. They lost to Team Bliss, but since I was able to call that they were the team that wouldn't come top 8, I don't think it was a surprise. But I'll see. Bass, do you agree?
Not after Regional 1, you probably could have slid them into the top 8. But to lose to Bliss, that's still a top seed to finish 9th to 12th. So like that could have gone either way. But yeah,
it did suck that like they got in that spot because of Team Bliss's bad performance in the groups. Yeah,
for sure. You don't expect a team of that nature to just make it in out of groups. You expect them to be, first or second seed, not just scraping in as the third seed. So for Wildcard, it is unfortunate they're number 8. But when you look at Regional 1 and Regional 2, totally two different performance results. So it's sort of ironic of the name, I guess, two wildcard performances. You get one good one, you get one bad one.
See, I was expecting that the reason they would come outside of the top 8, my call was because Physicists would beat Wildcard and then they'd be up against Team Bliss anyway, because Team Bliss would have come second. It would have been extra interesting if Physicists did manage to beat Wildcard, and then they avoided each other because both of them came third. Again, going down maybe to the format a little bit there. But do you have any like kind of background information, CJ, on Wildcard, why things may have not gone so well for them?
Well, they sort of remind me of OG Renegade, or not OG, but Renegades with myself, Kami, and Siki, because it's in scrims they are just absolute pedal to the metal, and when it's on, when there's no pressure, they're playing so fast. You think, what's going on? Like Mock's just running your boost left, right, and center like that. They are the most aggressive team in scrims. And it sort of felt like how everyone treated us back in the day, being called the Scrimegades, and not really showing up for the regionals. Like everyone's saying, do it in a tournament. We were sort of left saying the same thing about this team, and I think that they had a very unlucky run to, when you compare, with all the greatest respect to Clarity and 1620 Kings potential of top 8, they did have to play Team Bliss, who did come 4th in the regional before. However, in saying that, I think that Team Bliss is nearly the worst team in the top 7 that they could play, because they are the most default. They all sit back. You looked at the stats last night, Yummy. Like Bliss, they all are just spread out. One's in one corner, one's in the other defensive corner, one's in net or whatever. Like, they're so defensive. And I think for Wildcard Gaming, they need a team that wants to try and take it up to them, like a ground zero, which we saw in regional number 1. When that happens, and sort of if it's clicking for Wildcard, they're going to be able to catch a lot of those teams out, because when it's a battle of sort of who wants to be more aggressive, they can really come out on top because they're just so ridiculously aggressive. So then they played a team, Bliss just got 3-0 because Bliss just went, righto, you can attack, and then they overcommitted, and we saw, own goals coming out and so many random open nets and counter attacks and stuff like that. And I think you sort of brought it up in the cast, just the way they were overcommitting. And that's sort of what we saw in scrims. Like, if it was clicking in scrims, they were really close scrims against us, but we were thinking, wow, this is hard to keep up, on game day with pressure on. And I think that, not sure, how that play style's come about, but it sort of did feel like how aggressive we used to play with Siki. So I'm interested to see if they do make a roster change, or what happens with that team, how, I guess, new teams form off that. Because they just didn't have that. They didn't have that consistency. They just had that sort of pop-off factor. But it was very match-up dependent as well for me.
Makes a lot of sense. I like the. I didn't really think about the fact, the direct match-up between Bliss, and how they do spread out and just wait for things to happen. So, if you're getting inside your own head, thinking the challenge is going to come, then you might just be beating yourself. But Wildcard's got to be very, 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 very disappointed with their performance, and I think when we talk about this second event, providing a lot of context from the first event. We're thinking that that was more of a bad performance from Ground Zero or in first event, or are you thinking the same thing, Bass, as CJ, that it was a bad matchup for Ground Zero?
Well, you go back to even the first split when it wasn't Wildcard, when it was Cringe Society and Grogan's. Like Grogan's would always had mock on it at the time, and that would always go the distance with Ground Zero. And same with Cringe as well; they could always go the distance. So to be able to merge those two rosters in the trade window, you could see the potential. So I wasn't quite surprised when they took down Ground Zero in the first regional. But they've always got that distinctive play style. So to be outplayed mentally by Team Bliss, it's just Bliss being the better mentality for that series.
Awesome. Let's head into number 7 as well. We'll go to our number 7 on the rankings, and that is going to be Team Bliss. So, despite their top 4 performance, we're not ranking them as highly as that top 4. And I think that's fair. I think in their top 4 performance, they took down Wildcard and they took down Juice Bandits. Those weren't top 4 teams, and they didn't take down Riot Gaming, who kind of at the time were 3rd, but realistically you're kind of looking at number 5, number 6 maybe. They weren't taking down the teams they need to beat to be number 4. And I think that proved back to back here that they are not quite ready to be challenging the very top, CJ.
Yeah, this team, I mean, they nearly caught us out on the weekend. As we said before, they sit so defensive, twice, yeah. They sit back and it's exactly the same as a wildcard situation. Like, you really need to keep your head against that team because they do have the Zen factor, which I think has added a lot to that lineup compared to Snowy. Just knowing, like, Zen can just... Like, he's so weird. Like, he'll miss the easier stuff and then hit, like, the most ridiculous, like, backboard skim or something, or sidewall skim, and it'll be down your end. So you always got to be a little bit more careful, that team. But they probably... I think their play style might be the thing that's hurting them cracking into the top 4, because they're sort of relying on the other team just being a little bit of an idiot and, like, overcommitting and, you know, that sort of stuff, which sort of we got caught out for, like, until we were like 2-1 down in groups against them. We thought, all right, let's keep our heads here, because we were sort of coming out going, all right, let's absolutely, you know, knock their block off at the start of the game. And then quickly you realise that these guys are very happy to be in defence. It's not really a Riot Gaming though, where they're making heaps of saves. They're just all very structured, and they're all about sort of their back post rotations, very clinical. Just, you know, they've watched Gregan's YouTube videos on rotations, and they're all just following it to an absolute T.
Yeah. Chiefs season 4, you know, kind of.
Yeah, but they might just lack that, like, that element of randomness that I guess sort of the top 4 teams might have. Bar when Zen's really on, I think they can have that. And Vorts, I guess, is that random player, because sometimes he's a bit like Zen. He can, you know, do something crazy or not hit it. So they do have that factor. I think Cobbo's really stepped up. He's probably been the best player on that roster for mine.
How has he changed? How has he changed from last season?
He's just playing faster. Like, before, he was almost just dribbled absolutely everything, but now he's actually sort of getting double touches off walls, following it up, not throwing it away. So I've been really impressed with that team. I just think it could be like one of those like sort of Canberra Havocs back in the day, where they're sort of winning, but they're probably lacking that, you know, what makes them special, I guess. That sounds harsh, but it's sort of, you know, they might just need to, you know, in the next split, try and find something unique that's going to make them, because right now they're very structured, which can help, but it's not going to win you a world championships. But it depends on the goal for those guys, you know.
I think it sets a good foundation.
100%.
I can kind of give you some context, because the way they play is basically how I taught Alpha for Sydney Chiefs to play originally, but then it very quickly became clear that they need to evolve from there, and it was very easy to do so because of the fact that they had such a structure that they really knew what was going on, and made it clear when you're breaking that structure. If you just have chaos and you're trying to then go, CJ, you should cut more, you don't know what that means, you don't know what the difference is. But if you've got a very clear structure, a very clear foundation, and then you go, okay, let's try and change this thing, you know what you're actually changing, you can communicate what you're actually changing, you're communicating that you're doing something different than normal, and I think that can be a long-term effective strategy if they stay together in the long term. Bass, do you think that's going to happen?
I hope so, because Max picked them as a there's no honeymoons for this team, but obviously it's shown to start with. There's a little up and down period, but that comes with any roster. And I think at the moment they're trying to win it all on defense. Zen just needs to possibly just pull out an X Factor play out of somewhere, or Cobo. But yeah, Vortex has always been that in defensive player, and I think he complemented well with Snowy. So obviously they've removed Snowy and brought in Zen. So you hope to see more midfield to up the field than playing the defense all the time.
Well, you probably are more of an expert on honeymoons than anyone else, Bass, because you were manager for Direwolves. Do you think honeymoons are real?
Yes, I do. I've seen too many rosters go through. There's been now 2 to 3 rosters through Direwolves.
Direwolves honeymoon without changing the rosters.
And even like my Justice days, with Justice Esports, they hard honeymooned. So yeah, it is a thing. Teams go through their patches, especially when they're new. They're finding what works and what doesn't. So hopefully they stick together and they can ride it through.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of honeymoons, I think it's more when teams first, or not even teams first form, as you said, it can be at any point. Just teams will start sort of playing well, which is kind of what Direwolves are doing right now, because as they said, they haven't changed anything, and I think Bible was saying they don't have a particular play style, it's just working. And I think that the problem, we've even struggled with that, is that you're playing well for a period of time, right? And then you're not playing well. And then you're just going all right, what's changed? What are we doing? And then if you don't really have the foundations of, what made you guys play well, then it's very hard to sort of get that back, which is why a lot of teams will break up, because they're not getting sort of the performances they used to, which is, I guess, why at least you've got teams like Bliss that do have that very structure that they can fall back to if things really do go pear-shaped. But yeah, in regards to honeymoons, I just think so many teams form with just right, let's just have fun, let's just feel each other out, and then you start popping off, you get in this rhythm. But if that rhythm sort of goes, or the pressure really gets on, say it's regional number 3 now, it might be it's us for Kidden and Direwolves trying to make a major, where this is it, you got one weekend. That's when you sort of, you can't really just rely on the honeymoon, we have been playing well, so let's keep playing well. You have to actually have some form of structure. So I guess that's my view on a honeymoon, Yumi. Don't know if you agree with that, but I just think that teams that are playing well at the time that don't know how they're playing well, it's going to go very poorly when they do start having a bit of a rough run.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a part of it is a mental side as well. When things do start falling apart, you start questioning yourself or your teammates. Often it's your teammates for some people. Some people will go inwards, and that's also a problem depending on who you are. But that's kind of enough on honeymoons and Team Bliss. I'm sure since they've started changing their play style, they'll get in the groove in the next one, and we do expect good results from people who are in the 5 to 7 range here. Team Bliss definitely could get another top 4. Team number 6, again, another team that could get top 4, did get a top 6 in both the last 2 weekends, is going to be a Riot Gaming. Riot Gaming, who have fallen off a lot now, Bass.
Yeah, they are the group stage warriors. They are getting top seed in groups, and then it all disappears day 2. Don't know what's going on. I don't think they have a coach, so I think they're just running off themselves. And maybe they are looking for a coach. If a coach is watching, maybe reach out to them. Just to help them out. I think it's just mental. I think their play style, it's there. They showed it the first split that they can do it. They can show it on group stage. I think it's when it gets to a game 4, I think they just put too much pressure on themselves to try and perform. But Kaka and Finn are 2 good players, 2 solid rocks, and I think they complement well with Tango. I think they just need to work together.
No, what happened to Tango though? What's happened to Tango? Where's Tango gone?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he's not even in defense anymore. He's midfield to aggressive up front. So I don't know if they tried to change something and it's just not worked. But yeah, just go back to what was working, lads. You're getting top 8s and pushing top 4. So yeah, being in 6, it just shows that this split, it hasn't clicked. But I don't know, what's the difference on pitch like for you, CJ, with versing Riot? Because you guys have versed them a couple of times now.
Yeah, I've spoken about it a little bit off stream. I just think in the off season when we were all away, these guys were playing extremely aggressive. They were sort of scrimming Direwolves every day of the week, and Direwolves are a team that are more than happy to sort of just solo play it out of defense and chill and let you guys attack. So Riot from us, like we left OCE going to Sweden, and Riot was sort of this team where Tango's the brick wall in net. These guys never leave net. They're so happy to dribble and sort of carry it out and hope you overcommit. And they turned into this team where Kaka's just flat out ball chasing around, like Tango's trying to get involved as well. Finn's trying to hit 18,000 flip resets, and it was just a completely sort of different team. And I think it was sort of working in scrims and stuff because again, it's sort of that pressure factor, but when it gets to game day, it's sort of every player has their tendencies, and I think Tango wants to go back to his old school tendency of, sit in net, but he's like sort of halfway in between. Oh, we're playing a bit more aggressive now, like what are we doing? And then he's halfway in between. Kaka's just flat out ball chasing the whole game. Finn's like a little bit off and on. I just think they've all lost, I guess, their play style, because when the pressure's on, some of them want to go back to what worked last split or last season. Others are like, yeah, let's go aggressive like it scrims, but it's not scrims, there's more pressure. And I think their rosters in the bin right now. So
actually, like disbanded or just in the bin, like?
No, I think there's going to be some changes on Riot. So I'll be interested to see what happens. Perhaps next regional, if not next split. But having said that, as you said, they were beating Direwolves in scrims. They nearly beat Fakidden on the weekend. Like that was a game 6 OT. That could have been a game 7 easily. Like they have it. I just think I say their rosters in the bin because I feel like I've heard some things that it's not going too well. But they're still a team that's capable of a top 2. Like they're a capable major team. They showed that last split. But I guess it might be that they've gone too far away from what made them a good team, and they're like so confused now they just need something new. Like maybe that's what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, it's so hard to tell because when we watched them on the weekend, it was only Kaka. Like it was just Kaka. He existed, and he was great. Like I'm saying, that Kaka, given the right day, given the right results, could be a top 5 player. And kind of showed that in the lower bracket. But mentally, they even acknowledged on Twitter that they went 18 games in a row in the playoffs without winning a single game. They lost 18 games in a row. They finally got 2 on the board after dropping so many. They dropped the first 2 games as well down in that lower bracket against Fakidden. They dropped so many. And I feel like because Rocket League is such a mental game, there's so much mental behind it in terms of like your own thoughts about yourself, your team, that even just having that as a stat in your mind is the kind of thing that'll lose you confidence. And I feel like Kaka has played the best when he's confident recently. And I don't know what's going on with Tango. He, as you said, I feel like probably between 2 minds because he's not holding the net and he's not achieving anything in the midfield either. And this is the guy who realistically was meant to be the best player on that team and one of the highest up and coming players in the region not too long ago.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. I think they're just, especially like they know the stat too. I think that's even a weirder thing as a player. I know, playing sport, like, if I'm...
It's hard when I'm reminding them every 10 seconds.
But like that, a player listening to the stream whilst they're comment as well, it's just that extra pressure that they're adding onto themselves that they don't necessarily or should be doing. I know, like, you use cricket, for example, right? If you know that you've got 2 golden ducks, like you've been out first ball, you walk out for a third and you're like, yep, need to just hit a single straight away, and you're trying to preemptively try and hit a single to get off the mark. So it feels like that's what Riot was trying to do. Good that they finally got a win. I think that helped them. They looked positive at the end of that series, even though they did lose. But yeah, you don't want to be knowing the stats whilst you're playing mid-series. That's not a good thing.
CJ, any thoughts on that, Mr. quote-unquote always top 5 in stats?
Yeah, stats is everything, Yummy. It doesn't matter where you place, as long as you're top 5, octane.gg at the end. No, yeah, I 100% agree. I think that it's Rocket League's a mental game. I spoke about it before about the roster changes. Like, I think there's so many sort of teams that have the talent. I just think they're lacking the mental side, and I think that they're not prepared to sort of look into that. They're more prepared to sort of make a roster change, which is interesting because it's sort of a roster change should be a last sort of avenue to take because there's so many other things you can work on first. But yeah, getting that sort of mental stuff in your head is not great. And as you said, Yumi, you're pretty quick to remind me, so I've had to develop some sort of a mental to sort of block you out sometimes. Because you remind me every time or every day of the week how bad I am. So, you know, you got to... I guess it's sort of that tough love that some people might need. Maybe Riot need to get reminded about that all the time because the comeback will be even stronger.
The problem is, CJ, is that, like, if I don't remind you, then that hat won't fit anymore. So,
exactly.
I'm doing it for your own good. And it seems
let's get number 5.
Seems to be working out. Well, hang on. Before we do, because we've been talking a lot about roster changes and sticking together. How long do you expect this Renegades roster trio to be together for?
Probably just one bad performance away from completely disintegrating. I mean, well, obviously just for the season, we'll see what happens at the end of the season. I mean, we'll I can't right now. Like there aren't 2 other players in the world that I want to play with, so I think the other 2 probably think a little bit differently. But
poor even after that performance in the grand final.
Yeah, even when K-Dog's a little bit quieter on the octane, he'll stick on that octane for the next regional. He'll be popping off. I think he was just too used to the Fennec, so I'm going to back him in. But yeah, I think that what we've got as a team, it's a lot more than on the pitch, which is very important, and with Lockie as well, with the mental sort of side of things we've done, and I think that it's something. You know, it's more about our team, I guess, especially having Fever in it, who's very young. It's more about us. Sort of just growing as human beings, as weird as that sounds a cliche. It's more about like us maturing off the pitch at the same time and trying to develop that chemistry off the pitch, which helps when the pressure is on and our backs are against the wall because we know like we've done the work and we've, you know, got that sort of connection where we're not like, oh my God, if I miss this ball, this bloke's going to rip my head off, which is I think a lot when there are sort of roster changes start getting in your head or you're someone who constantly is changing teams every month and a half. Or perhaps you're on a team with someone who you know just kicks everyone, like Hawk. It's sort of in the back of your mind, if I have a couple of bad series, I might do this if I miss this ball. Then it's sort of, you're just adding your own sort of pressure, like that's unnecessary. So I think what we've got is really good on Renegades. And hopefully we can show that this weekend, or not this weekend, in 3 weeks' time, because there's a massive break for some reason.
I look forward to seeing that growth off the pitch some point come to fruition. That'll be awesome.
Thank you.
Number 5 is Juice Bandit. So we see a big rise. If you guys didn't keep up to date with the power rankings after the last one, Juice Bandits were actually number 8. They were settled in behind Wildcard, mostly because Wildcard took down Ground Zero. And now they've bounced up with a top 6. And, of course, the win in groups. I think that was over Direwolves. So... was it? No, it was over for Kitten. It was over for Kitten. Yeah. It was Direwolves and Riot. So they've moved up here. I still, personally, if I was doing a prediction right now, Bass, I wouldn't be putting them number 5. They're here on the results.
Yeah, I think it's definitely results based. Yeah, they still got, they got top seed out of their pool. I think that helped them with their placement. Because
they are pool kings. They are day one kings.
Oh, for sure. They lost to CJ in game 7. Don't know how they got to game 7 there, CJ. And then got swept by Direwolves. So, like, I know Direwolves. We've been talking about them. They've been clicking this split, but Bandits have always talked about why aren't we top 4? Why aren't we top 4 on PR? And that's why they just aren't winning the big games.
Yeah, they nearly rolled us. So I think they're a really strong team. On their day, they beat Kitten so many times. That team, they're nearly just a lock for top seed whenever they're in that group. They've got something over them. They've got a mental edge, and I think Kitten even spoke about it in an interview. I think Lockie said they have to play different against them, so they are massively in Kitten's heads as well, if that's sort of happening. And
Zaid popped off. Zaid popped off on that day, that Saturday.
Yeah,
at least compared to expectations.
I think Sprat's probably the most consistent player in that team. Hawk is sort of the group stage absolute fiend. But if Hawk puts in a poor one, they just get swept like by Direwolves. So they really rely on him to sort of carry it out of defense a lot of the time, or Sprat to go for a Cook's pinch off the sidewall randomly and miss it. But that sort of stuff gets him out of defense. But if they can have a pop-off regional, they could win the whole thing if they have to go through the upper bracket. But they can put in a poor one, which is, I guess, their biggest downfall right now, particularly on the Sunday. You're sort of waiting for that one where they don't really show up. But I think this team's great, and I think
I think there's a few of those pop-off players. We won't mention all of them, but Hawk is always at the top of the stats for the region. You're pretty much number one. However, if you take... it's pretty much all from the group stage. His stats in their group stage are phenomenal. He absolutely crushes lower teams. And then if you actually look at his stats and this is kind of a bit unfair this weekend due to him going, losing out of the upper bracket and lower bracket, but still, he's not even top half in the stats. In fact, he's very close to the bottom. He's bottom 10 out of 24 players-ish. So there's a lot of that. People who crush that lower competition and then fall out for more. And that's the same with like Riot Gaming. They've struggled a lot in the playoffs so far. Number 4 for us here. Number 4, we start moving into this deadly top 4. However, obviously a huge surprise here. Who would have expected after last split, CJ, that Ground Zero would be our number 4?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably... I still think no one... Oh, no, I say no one. There's not many people, I guess, sort of realise the situation that they're in, I guess, globally. I don't think that'll sort of sink in until the major, when everyone will, I guess, unless the 0.01% chance happens that they do make it, like, everyone will go, wait, where is Torsos? I don't think it's really sunk in for the world yet that Ground Zero are 4th. I guess we're obviously annoyed they took first seed off us, but it worked well last split. They came into this split, and I think I think you spoke about it, Yumi. Amphis has a bit of a life now. He's got the misses. I'm seeing Snapchat stories all the time. He's going out with the misses and stuff. So I don't know, like, how their sort of prep had been going to the split. I know they took a bit of a break, as sort of we did as well after Sweden. They also took a bit of a break before the first split. They were a slow starter. They spoke about it there. They really picked it up for Sweden. I felt they should have beaten Envy. Coming into this split, probably unlucky to get 8th, given that lost to Fakidden. Like, give it another run, they're at least top 4 for mine. They ran into, the second best team in OCE right now. But you can say that as well, but you're expecting them to be top 2. Like, that, they should be either the first or the second best team in OCE. So, I mean, it's easy to say, they should have gone higher, but they probably should be a better team than Fakidden, based on record. But, worried for this roster now. I guess it's that, that this team has been up for so long that, like, you don't really find out as much about sort of the individuals and the team synergy until you're sort of in the bin, until you're sort of down the bottom, and this stage where, they're probably already looking at next split, next major. But fortunately, they still have a lot of points. They're still second in points. They're probably still going to be second in points after this weekend in total RLCS points. But I think we'll find out a lot about this team next split and how they sort of bounce back, or if they do make a change, or if the roster's in the bin. Like, we don't really know. But having said that, they're a game away from grand finals, and they lost to a top 8 to Fakidden. So it's not like they're playing bad. They just haven't got the results. And in a format where it's really it's a painful format, and you can get absolutely smashed if you don't build that consistency and get the results. It probably feels a lot worse for Ground Zero than it really is, because they're still a team that's going to win any regional they want to, if they play well.
It was that wild card that cost them. The wild card loss in the first one. If they had come third and third best, then they'd still be well within this.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you change that storyline, just that series alone, just has basically ruled their whole split. It was just crossbar after crossbar in that series, and that's what cost them. And it cost them seeding, cost them, running into a strong team that would ruin their lower bracket run. But they bounced back this regional, which was good. But yeah, definitely, as you said, CJ, people are going to get to major and not understand where's Ground Zero, because Ground Zero have dominated pretty much the last 18 months. also, especially ours last season. So for them to not possibly not be a feature, I won't just rule them out completely. We have seen weird things happen. But it'll be the first time that we won't see Torsos possibly at a LAN since we were first introduced. So that's major. That's a big thing. He definitely knows that, and he'll be trying to push the team to hopefully have a chance. But yeah, I don't know. Next split, you start working towards next split. I feel.
I think the craziest thing about, I guess, Torsos in particular, because we've seen Alpha Sydney, Chiefs, Renegades, the domination era of Torsos, and he would have a bad day. They would have a bad weekend. But in league play, that meant that you lost to a random team. It meant you lost to a random team, and you'd be able to fight back the next week, and you'd be back into it. They had a bad day, or maybe 2 bad days, I'm not sure, but I'd say a bad day with the loss to Wildcard. They had no chance to fight back for the entire split. They couldn't afford that. And as much as they can bounce back, I think the biggest problem with them is that they're not hungry enough all the time to be the very best of the best. Then, I've been criticizing teams for scrimming twice a day, CJ, saying that that's barely anything for somebody who's getting paid a full-time salary, whether that's inclusive of prize pool or not, and that's happening all around the world, NA and EU as well. And I feel like Ground Zero aren't even doing 2 a day because they don't take it seriously enough.
I want to add as well, without trying to, I don't want to help them out, obviously. I feel like they've done a Riot Gaming as well, where I think they've lost their identity as a team, and I think we saw on the weekend in particular, not really the first. I think the first split, the first regional of this split, they came out like they were so aggressive, like they were like a Riot Gaming, a wildcard in scrims, and they just came up against a wildcard that was also aggressive, and it just happened to be that. Wildcard were the team that was like hitting the touches a bit more, like because everyone was playing so fast. And I think I think Amphis spoke about. I'm not sure it was Amphis or Torse or someone, but I think Amphis spoke about how they were trying to sort of dial it back. It might have been Torse, and like find themselves again, like they in between regional 1 and 2. But I think we saw on the weekend that there was still that shift where Express is like. In their net, while the other 2 are on their backboard, and there was that like, oh, what are we doing then? Like, because there was still that, it felt like the Riot Gaming, like, but they had 2 Kakas who were ball chasing.
Yeah.
So I think they just have lost their identity, and I think I'm not sure if that's to do with the major or for us, it sort of felt like they were trying to like outpace us, like when we were scrimming them. It felt like they were slowly getting faster and faster and faster, so it wasn't the Ground Zero we were used to. And you sort of saw on the weekend there were a lot of open nets they were giving up, and even the first regional was Ground Zero. I mean, their wildcard series, they had some blunders as well. So I think they tried to make that change in between regional 1 and 2. They realised this isn't how we play as a team, but then they still got stuck where they either didn't have enough time to fix it, or push came to shove, the pressure got on, and then they sort of forgot again, like what are we doing here? Are we the aggressive team, or are we like the third man, and we're not too committee? We've got Amphis downfield as the flare. I don't know. I think they'd agree with that. They've just lost their identity. So I don't think it's their team needs to change or something. I just think that they maybe overthought, post major, or they try to change up too much at the major, and it's really hurt them in a split where you have to perform every regional.
Yeah, I criticized Express a lot on this weekend as well, because I normally see Express. I mean, he is perma third man. That's just how he's been since this trio formed, and he's usually really good at it and really solid and stable, and he doesn't commit when it's unnecessary. And I think I'm not sure why that has changed and why he feels more rushed, but I'm guessing it's not a him thing. It is a team thing. It is maybe a panic thing, an aggression thing. I'm not 100% sure. We probably need to ask them, and maybe we will sometime.
Probably just a loss of confidence, Yumi, in the fact that they don't know what their play style is right now. Whereas I feel like Express before was always making those bang-on challenges, and I look back at, I guess his third man was likened to sort of, I don't know if anyone remembers this sort of going back, but Kami Season 6 Worlds as the third man was like just keeping the ball in. Like Express is so good at keeping the ball in, but I think now with how aggressive they've been, he's like, oh, we don't want to overcommit here. You know, Torsen Amster's gone. Now he's sort of hesitating, and then he's in no man's land, or he's all the way back and he can't keep it in. So I just think it's that confidence thing, just with like not even his own confidence, just in the team. It's like, I don't know if I should be going here or waiting for them to get back. Whereas before they were just all on the same page, and he just knew when he had to challenge, and he was really good at those challenges. So they're in a hard spot.
I think when Torsos gets uncomfortable, he wants to do a lot as well. And the only difference that happens, the major difference that happens with his playstyle there is that normally he's confident and happy to rotate in as third man every now and again. But it felt like too many times Amphis and Torsos both wanted to be going forward. We've seen their success when Amphis has been the one playing kind of that hyper-aggressive, very far forward role. And he's still trying to do that. So if Torsos moves really far forward, it does cause those overcommits as well. Let's have a look at our number 3. We've only got 10 minutes remaining. So number 3, we're going to be heading over to Direwolves, and a bit of a drop-off after the first event where they came first. They've now come third, and since all these 3 teams in the top 3 have been really, really close, that just pops them down in the rankings, Bass.
Yeah, again, they did have a good lower bracket run, just like for Kitten, but they lost that crucial match against Kitten to really, seal the deal. To be a top 2 team. But they've performed well this whole split. Misty's played outstanding. I think probably this is the best I've ever seen Misty play. Wally's definitely helped out in the backfield, and I say that because that's his role. And Fiber's just been able to rotate wherever he feels like. And
Fiber has stopped trying to air dribble every single ball from his backboard to their end, slowing down the play, making us all yawn and cry and wait for them to actually do something.
Yeah, it's just been too repetitive before, so it's good to see a change up, and that's what they needed. They needed to spice up this season, and they've done that. So I'm proud of them. Wish they did it when I was there, but now I'm out, so it must have been me.
Yeah, obviously a massive first performance. I think Misty could not have possibly played any better in the first regional. Sort of wasn't there as much in the second regional. I think Walcott was really popping off. I know everyone talks about Fiber, but I think Walcott was just... He had so much confidence to really just... Especially in the Bandit series. Like, they just get that one touch sort of... That looked like it was going to be a clear. He's like straight down the other end, bombing down for looking for a bump or something like... And yeah, we warmed them up before that series, or they warmed us up, and it was ridiculous. Like we got absolutely smashed on Sunday in warm-ups. They were looking good. So, although they've lost to Fikidden, we spoke about it sort of at the start of the hot takes at the start. I think the table's going to turn. I think they've been a bit more sort of head down, keep it cool, because it's anyone's game still. Whereas. For Kitten, it's been a bit more like, holy shit, the major's on, holy shit, it's NNA, like, this is unbelievable sort of stuff, which, when you already have that kid energy, and then you try and, sort of like, you're over-enthused, over-excited, the spectrum's a bit off. Perhaps in those Game 7s where we saw Kitten take it over them on the weekend or previously, we might see Direwolves keep their heads more, but it's easy to say outside of the game, it's always different in the series. But I think Direwolves can turn the tables. I really hope it's not us in the lower bracket and it's Direwolves and Fikidden, because that's going to be so exciting to watch. Less exciting if you're one of the teams involved. So should be a good one. Yeah, I think they'll bounce back. Just the way their body language after this event.
Walcott has been clutch when everything was on the line. Obviously, that's how he got to that Worlds in the first place. Let's talk about Fikidden as well, since you already picked up on them, and they are our number 2 here. Just such consistent results. They've come second 3 times in a row against different people in the grand final 3 times in a row. Haven't been able to get over that hurdle, but I don't think that really bothers me, because every single time they've had to run a really difficult gauntlet. They've never had an easy run. Even going back, it was Direwolves into Riot, the 2 teams that you have to beat to be number 3 at the time. Then they beat everybody through the lower bracket, including Ground Zero, including Renegades, and then came second. And then they've done it again, over the top of Direwolves, over the top of Ground Zero again. They have very clearly proven themselves. They've changed their play style, and they've been able to stick to it, because what I heard And CJ, you're going to have a lot to say about this. Fever managed to coach them in the off-season to tell them how they could possibly play the best to beat you guys, and it has been on fire. That has been the exact play style that was necessary.
Yeah, when you pick up Thieves, he's just such a good kid, but sometimes he's a little bit too nice. But I'm not sure how much credit that is. I feel like they've really just gone for the have fun meta Team Queso sort of style, where I feel like when they look at themselves as underdogs, which is sort of what Queso are doing, they're really performing against a strong team. But I think they still struggle against when they think that they're the favourites, like your Bandits. They think they should beat that team because they're a better team, right? Rather than always looking up to your Ground Zeroes, Renegades, and Direwolves as sort of that 50-50 team. I think they do have that bit of a mental block because they relieve pressure on themselves by saying, well, no one's expecting us to win. But now maybe they're picking up an org. Maybe they're starting to look at the major. Maybe they're starting to think.
I feel like you're really against the kitten.
I need to run with this. Look, Dover's telling me to get a storyline for this power ranking, get a hot take. So I'm just going to go with this hot take. I think that they've been super consistent. This is it. This is the one though. I guess this is the weekend where we need to see it. And I've been really impressed. I think it's awesome. I think we spoke about at the start of the stream that we finally got like a top 4. Like Ground Zero's 4th and a clear 4th, which is crazy. Like before we were like, Riot Gaming could be 2nd because they, went better than Renegades or Ground Zero at one event. Now we've got like, okay, Fig Kitten's got 3 seconds in a row. And I guess the only knock on them is that they don't have the win yet, but they've always come through the lower bracket. So maybe if they decide to actually show up in the group stage, they can come through the upper bracket and get that regional win. But if they do make it, I'd love to see them get that regional win, just to say, they've had that one before the major. But at the same time, this format just rewards consistency. If you get top 2, 3 times in a row, like you're nearly guaranteed, to make it.
You are guaranteed, yeah.
You are guaranteed to make it, so because you're a top 2 team. So I think that they could easily win this weekend. I'm just going to run with the narrative that maybe Direwolves can get it over them, makes it exciting, and I guess it tries to remove us from the equation, so I'll try and do that as much as possible.
And Bass, how do they go at the major if they make it?
Let's
keep putting this story in their heads that they're going to make the major.
I think it would be. I think we see a tiebreaker. Finally, we have an OC team in a tiebreaker to get out of elimination in group stage. Who that will be, depending on seeding, I don't know how seeding will work for major, but yeah, I do see it possibly being a tiebreaker if it's us versus a lower region or even Sam again with the kids. But I just hope it's LA. I hope that they're not thinking about Hollywood and all the different blitz and blang. That's all.
I don't think they'll get the chance. I don't think so.
I
think they'll be stuck in their hotel, basically.
Just like what CJ was in Sweden. But I feel like as if, I just hope they're not thinking too far ahead. You got to think about the now. The week break as well is in there. So that's just going to add more pressure onto them and the expectation. I know Max didn't pick at them all weekend long, I think it was. But was rooting for him silently. So, and now they've got Max.
We should talk about Max because he got one prediction right all week.
Yeah, and he's in Dubai, so he won't be able to listen to this anyway. So, hopefully they can pull it through. But I really hope that they just can continue playing how they're playing at the moment because they just have this next gear which comes after a timeout. So just take timeout after match 1 and you'll be fine.
Can I just add, although I was, trying to say Direwolves going to make the major, if Fikidden make the major, I think Fikidden will go better than Direwolves, just for the kid factor. I think they can put in an absolute stinker where they are like absolutely pulling themselves, reversing an NRG or something. But I think there's going to be at least one series where they just have fun, like let's just enjoy it, and everyone will be going, wow, these kids are absolute freaks, like 3, mechanical kids that are popping off. So whereas Direwolves maybe will get too far inside their head, so it might be different regionally versus internationally. I don't know why I've come up with that sort of narrative, but I think if
I agree. That's what I was about to say as well. I think we saw it with Amphis at the major as well. Like he was just playing Amphis, and when you're younger and you don't kind of care as much, or they don't care because Banana had almost missed out on that first event, and this is maybe not him so much not caring as his family, but he almost missed out of that first event. His family was going to go on a holiday and they only didn't because he got COVID. He's missed out because of a haircut in the past. They don't sweat it too much, and I think that will help them internationally as well, hopefully. And then our number one team, obviously no surprise to you guys.
I'll just add as well, before that, Yumi, that I believe they've also, I'm not obviously not going to leak anything, but I believe they're starting to work with a bit of a mental coach before the next regional. So that's interesting as well to know. So there you go.
Yeah. Hopefully that's org provided as well. We'll head to number one, Renegades. All down to their mental coach, it seems. Was able to draw them back from number 3 in the first event. And I guess it's more important, Renegades, CJ, to talk about that first event. First, to give context here, what happened in the first event?
Yeah, I think we were probably a little bit. I don't want to say we were too confident, but I guess coming back from the major, we probably weren't. We were scrimming okay, but we probably weren't really on. And I think we sort of went in the mindset that like we'll just beat, like even if we're not a bit on, we'll just win. And I guess it probably didn't take until the grand finals of regional 2 for us to realize we actually have to really play full sweat comms, like everything has to be on for us to beat these teams because everyone is really strong. And it was like that last week, but we probably just were in a little bit of cruise control throughout the events, and we're like getting a bit frustrated because although we weren't, fully comming, we were still like, but we should be beating these guys. And then it probably just snapped in that for Kitten series when they did beat us 6-2 in game 3 or something. Like, all right, these guys are pretty good. Like, let's really get into it, and we're able to close it out. So I think the first event we got caught off guard, definitely. We lost to Kitten and Direwolves, I think, in the first event. And yeah, I think it's that realization we have to work for it, and I think it's been good for us because if we sort of coasted through this one, we could get absolutely hypothetically we coasted through this and we weren't really playing that well. We could go to the major and just get our pants absolutely pulled down. So I think we need this, and it really shows that like the strength of the region. Like we thought we were playing pretty well going into regional 1, and we really got shown up. And then we had to fix like a few things for regional 2, and it didn't really click until the grand finals. So hopefully now we know what we need to do. And I guess the good part is we did get a third, but we're still somehow number 1 in points, I guess, because of, a couple of seconds from Fikidden and
because Direwolves got a fourth.
Direwolves got a fourth and a first. So yeah, we're in a really good spot now. Hopefully if we can, this regional 3 is going to be a bit more satisfying than the first split where we only had to win 1 series, and then we sort of threw the rest of the one away. So I like that this event, Regional 3, like we've got a top 3, and you have to perform in the last one. You know what I mean? It sort of isn't all wrapped up. Obviously, I'd like it to be from my perspective, but it means, I guess, the most informed teams from the last event are going straight there, and time to boot camp and go. So I can't wait, and we're going to be head down trying to win another one. If we lose it, if we somehow make it and come like third and win in a tiebreaker, I think we'd be disappointed in ourselves. Like we want to sort of go in strong, and we want to take that first seed as well. So, don't know what your guys' thoughts on us are after a poor first event.
I think it just came to Direwolves just coming out and just trying to punch you guys in the mouth straight away in that first series. I think that sort of set the tone for that weekend. You guys look strong. Not necessarily out 3-0ing everybody, but you got to the top seed. I think it just came to Direwolves, how they performed on Sunday. They just decided to pick,
incredible.
Yeah, just peaking at that time, and then Fikidden was just peaking in the lower bracket. So you just ran into two teams that were ready just to hit the gas running. And by the time, as Yumi always brings up, the slow starters you guys are sometimes, it was just too late to come back. So Regional 2 looked stronger. But yeah, as we say, Regional 3, it's different to last split where you guys had it all nearly wrapped up. I think it was you had to win 1 match in Swiss stage, I think it was. Yeah. But now it's, you got to get basically all the way to the end. So it's going to be good. It's going to be a good fun battle to watch everybody play. But yeah, hopefully we see some consistency at Major. I think if we had 2 fresh teams, I think we would look a bit weaker as a region international play style, not local. Because we're sending, our 2 best for this split. But to have veterans at a major helps a lot for Worlds qualification and additional World spots.
I think as well when it comes to Renegades, I'm sick of them having bad days. I think it's I think if a team wants to be number one, then we gotta see them always playing at their best, whether it is on Saturday or Sunday or even Friday. I feel like every weekend they have somewhat of a bad day, and I'm not sure if it comes down to the player style. I feel like we've seen CJ, we'll ignore the fact that he's sitting here right next to me, we've seen CJ play very inconsistent in his play style on whether he wants to sit forward and kind of ball chase and cut and be a nuisance, or go really far back in defense and kind of, I don't know, be terrible on defense, realistically. Yeah. And so the thing that I always thought about Renegades when they were super successful in the last split was that each individual member of that team were so obvious in their play style, in how they wanted to play, that it was really obvious for them as individuals to know when somebody's going for the ball, what they're going to do, you know, even if they're completely different. Like, even if CJ's ball chasing and Fever's like shadowing every play, you know who wants to challenge. Then we come to this weekend, even ignoring the first weekend where we saw inconsistency in their play, just like on an individual level. We see them this weekend double committing and triple committing in really stupid scenarios that just didn't even make sense. Usually in scenarios where they're kind of running back to defense and Fever is shadowing the ball, and normally in that situation CJ's ball chasing the fuck out of it, and so he decides to turn and go on it. Well, then nobody challenges the ball, or both players challenge the ball, and there's no real identity there. And I think that's creating a large amount of inconsistency for that roster that's relying on them now, instead of being a part of it, relying on them now to have big individual performances, which they're able to do. I mean, you see that there from Fever in the grand final, CJ having a good performance, I think, in the upper bracket final as well. I think Fever played well across the entire event, especially compared to event number one. But in the past, it was always like, okay, if somebody's having a bad day, it didn't really matter for that team, because you'd have Fever, you'd have Kami playing very consistently. They could play as a team and still take the win. And we'll see. We'll see if that consistency comes. We'll see if that player style does return for them, because it's going to need to be that if they want to dominate, if they want to stay top two every single event for the next three splits. The 3 events, the next split. And I will say, the one thing about Renegades is if they do make this major, they pretty much guarantee themselves Worlds. They are going to be in such a strong position, with 2 majors under their belt, with their toughest competition not getting major points as well, that it would become a 3-way battle for Worlds, where they have a huge head start. The 3-way battle would be with whoever makes this major out of Fakidden and Direwolves, and of course Ground Zero, who still have a lot of points. You know, they got that close to top 8 points that I don't think is going to happen again.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, you just look at the results of the region, and you look at where they stack up and how, you know, when you look at splits, you think, oh yeah, you know, all 3 splits they'll equal each other out, but the points have increased as we go along, and you might have been popping off in the first split, which was Ground Zero, but this second split's really hurt their run. But yeah, good to see, you know, hopefully a team lock in. You know, talking about other regions, Sandrock's only about to do that in their own region, and that's a top 3 team region. So I know we've got top 4. So if we're able to sort of eliminate one team and have one team lock themselves in, it's just going to make that final run for that slot just even more interesting for the final split.
Yeah, the major points are really important there, getting 2 of them, and we'll see if Renegades can do it. Let's we're gonna be wrapping up here. One last thing before we do finish the show today. I want to get a hot take from each of you. It can either be about what's happened so far, or maybe preferably what is going to go down in the future in OC. And we'll start right to left. CJ, I need your hot take. I think you've been kind of leading into this one hot take all weekend, and I don't. And we'll see how, or this show, I mean.
Yeah, I'm just going to put Direwolves in there in the major. I just like how they've gone about it. There's just those, I don't know, they could come last if none of them pop off. Misty was unbelievable first event. Fiber was unbelievable second event. Walcott's probably been the consistent one. If they all pop off, that could be scary. If one of them pops off, they're probably still good enough. But I think it's just a mental game. I don't really think it's going to be pure, like, you know, someone hits a crazy solo playing Game 7 to make it. Like, I think it's just going to be that sort of mental game between the top 3 teams, which makes it exciting. As I said, I think I'm picking Direwolves to make the major. If a kid make it, they're going to do better than Direwolves. So that's my hot take.
All right, Bass.
Well, I'm going to change it up. I'm just going to say Game 7 overtime, Direwolves, baby. But Direwolves, baby, is going to win it. I think it's just
event?
Nah, maybe not entire event. I think there'll be a lower round qualification match. Will be the one. I think it'll be lower final. I think that's where it's going to be. But I think, yeah, definitely Direwolves. I think it's just going to come down to Wally. He's just going to do a flip reset. Finally, we'll see one. And that will be the defining moment.
All right, I think my hot take is going to be that Ground Zero win the major. Let's give that as a hot take because it's a bit of a changer, and also because it makes the other competition really kind of crazy because it means that one team at least has to go down to that like 5th, 6th place lower bracket run or start at the lower bracket, which is also very, very likely this weekend. Again, with roster changes, with teams giving up their points, it looks like, and we're probably going to have a group of death that has 3 top 8 teams in it. Going to be a very interesting lower bracket as well, with potential for a team to get knocked out in 9th to 12th that were like Direwolves. I could see Direwolves for Kidden. I'd struggle to see Renegades, but I could see either of those 2 teams getting knocked out really, really early in a lower bracket, given a wrong run, or given maybe a Direwolves versus Fakidden. That could happen in the lower bracket because they keep refusing to go up to that upper bracket, especially Fakidden.
I don't know. I think it's all scripted. We'll just have the top 3 in the top 3, and it'll be exciting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I think be good.
All right. Well, on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the first Power Rankings. Went a little bit longer than we planned. I blame myself for that one. But I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. We'll be doing this on the RLO channel every couple of weeks. CJ has promised to come back every single time and join us and give his thoughts as well. We'll see you guys in 3 weeks, I think, because we've got a week break. So no OCE this weekend. We'll also try and keep you up to date with all the roster changes. Dover has promised to go onto Twitter and make sure that you guys you see all the roster changes from the RLO Twitter account that do happen, so you know who's given up their points and how crazy that's going to be. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Hope you had a great night.